mental health problems can get round-the-clock support from a new hotline launching today. It'll be run by the charity Combat Stress with funding from the Ministry of Defence. Speaking on LBC, the Conservative MP for Reigate, Crispin Blunt, who served in the army until 1990, says it's badly needed.
Former colleagues of mine who were then serving in Afghanistan have faced an intensity of combat probably unseen since the Second World War. And that, of course, is all in a peacetime society where they then come back to the UK and it's not as though everyone else has gone through the war too.
England's cricketers have lost their first one-day international with New Zealand by 3 wickets in Hamilton. Ben Stokes took 2 wickets on his return to the side. Forecasters say even colder weather is coming in from the east from tonight. It could mean the chilliest February week for 5 years. The Met Office has issued yellow warnings of snow for most of the UK from tomorrow to Wednesday night, with transport disruption likely. LBC weather for today, fine and dry with sunshine for most areas, but cloudy in northeast England and eastern Scotland, highs of 5 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Andy Ivy.
Attraction grabs us when we least expect it. In a glance, desire overtakes reason. Fortunately, the Renault Clio Urban Nav with 7-inch touchscreen, rear parking sensors and hands-free keycard now comes with 1 year's free insurance and 3 years 0% APR representative. The Renault Clio Urban Nav. A clever choice is always more attractive. Visit Renault.co.uk to find out more. Renault Finance subject to status, over 18s, ordered by March 30th, registered by June 30th. T's and C's apply. Participating dealers. Insurance provided by Allianz Insurance, age 21 to 79. Visit Renault.co.uk/Clio Insurance.
LBC Travel, starting in the centre of town, Marylebone Road is queuing eastbound from Edgware Road Station to Baker Street because of roadworks there. Now in Enfield, Crown Road is closed westbound because of an accident at the junction with Great Cambridge Road. And in Barnet, the North Circular Road is queuing westbound. That's because of an accident which is partially blocking the road at the Coney Hatch interchange. On the Tubes, Goode Street Station is closed on the Northern Line. That's because the lift isn't working and the Circle Line is suspended between Aldgate and Edgware Road via Victoria. LBC Travel, I'm Emily Rose.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I've come here straight from Heathrow Airport. Yes, I've been over in Washington, D.C. for a few days, attending an event organised by the American Conservative Union, and every year they have a Conservative Political Action Conference. They describe themselves as the birthplace of modern conservatism. They're combining ideas with action to leverage the strength of thousands of grassroots activists to break through the resistance of Washington's powerful elites. So these are conservative voices from all over America, and quite a few from Europe now too, that attend this annual jamboree. It's attended by, I guess there were 10,000 people there, delegates at the conference. I would also guess 6,000-7,000 of them would have been under the age of 25. So a lot of very young student activists, people who'd, caught buses from all over America to be there. Not officially anything to do with the Republican Party at all. In fact, many of these activists view the Republican Party as being the problem, not the solution. And not since Ronald Reagan has an American president, Republican president, attended CPAC. It's been going for nearly 50 years. But Donald Trump turned up and spoke at CPAC last year, and he was back speaking at CPAC this year. Why? Well, the Americans have got big midterm elections coming up in November this year, and Trump thinks one of the big keys to succeeding in elections is grassroots activism. Shoe leather, people out there knocking on doors, delivering leaflets, getting out the vote on polling day, joining phone banks, and all the rest of it. I was fortunate to get to spend some time with the president. In fact, I met him immediately after he'd come off stage. He was buzzing. He's had a good couple of months, and the polls are looking a lot better for him. So it was good to catch up with the president. I hadn't seen him for a bit. I never ever disclose any confidential conversations I have with him. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that he's interested in UK politics, interested in where Brexit is going. Indeed, I didn't just meet him. I mean, I also met Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, Betsy DeVos, the Education Secretary, and a lot of those people in the West Wing who kind of helped the president run America. So it's been a very interesting few days. But I wonder, given that I am in the fortunate position of having all these contacts and connections, and actually genuine friends who are part of the Trump administration, and given that with Brexit we're looking to broaden out across the world in terms of what we do, and one of the big things would be a trade deal with the USA, do you think that given those links and connections, the government should make some use of me in the run-up to these, and perhaps even during these trade talks? And if you think, no, I think Nigel Farage is the worst person possible to do anything on behalf of the country, a view I think that is taken very much at the moment by this government, and I'll tell you shortly about a really quite remarkable boycott by the British Embassy of an event I attended. If you think I'm the worst person possible, I should have nothing to do with it, then call 0345 6060 973, or maybe you think it might be helpful for me to be able in some way to broker a deal and to improve relationships, by the way, that need to be improved, because I feel, despite Brexit, a Conservative Prime Minister, Trump winning, and all the talk about what our countries would do together, I think the Atlantic is still as wide as it was back in 2016, when many thought it might get just a little bit narrower. So if you think maybe I could help in some way, text to 84850, or maybe you've got a bigger, better idea. Maybe actually you think that we don't want a trade deal with the USA, that actually we might be better off staying in a customs union with the EU, which would mean we couldn't negotiate one anyway, and therefore I wouldn't be needed. And if that's how you feel, tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and you can, of course, watch us on Facebook and comment there too. I'm going to go to Jason from Watford. Hello, Jason.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. I'm okay, actually.
Are you jet lagged?
Do you know, people talk about jet lag. Honest truth is, Jason, you know, some nights I go to bed at 7 o'clock and some nights I go to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, so it doesn't really make very much difference to me. No, I mean, it was a very busy few days over there, but a very interesting few days over there. I mean, one thing I can tell you, Jason, is the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm that the Conservative supporting Americans have is something that just doesn't seem to exist in this country, really.
Yeah, but that's the American culture, isn't it? They get very enthusiastic, excited about a lot of things that we don't get excited about in this country.
I think that's true, although you could argue, Jason, that within Momentum and within a bit of the Labour Party, there's been a bit of enthusiasm generated there.
Possibly, but not like you get in America. You know what it's like there. You just come back from that place.
Yeah.
The reason I'm obviously speaking to you today is because one of the concerns I'd have about you being a, let's say, negotiator is that you're clearly a huge Donald Trump fan, and you can't really see any wrong. Whenever he does it, whatever he does, you either see it as funny or the right thing to do. And you don't seem to be a Theresa May fan. So would you be the best person to negotiate? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, Jason, let's deal with that. I mean, I am a supporter of President Trump. I do think he's taking the states in the right direction, and I do think, in a way, you know, he is the leader of this sort of revolution that is taking place across the West, where we're getting back to the concept of nation states being the building block that we believe in. And I am critical of Theresa May, but ultimately, Jason, much as I love America, and my first job for an American company was way back in 1982, and I've spent a lot of time there over the last 30 years. But ultimately, you know, I am British first, so it's Britain. You know, Britain's interests must be put first. But I do think, Jason, when it comes to trade, business, commerce, when it comes to security and dealing with international threats, when it comes to the military alliance of NATO, I do think us having a good relationship with America for the mutual benefit of both is what matters.
Right. My father thinks you're wonderful. He absolutely thinks you're great, and he'd love to see you running this country. And I'm kind of just a bit unsure about sometimes your motives, because if I was in your position, I would want, and I loved England, and I had the power that you've got. My first goal would be to try and become president of this country. because you love the country.
We haven't got. Well, Jason, we haven't got presidents here, have we? We've got
Prime Minister. Sorry,
what we've got,
Minister.
Jason. What we've got here, I'm afraid, is a predominantly two-party system that prevails.
Yeah.
That prevails under first past the post. And I've not found myself through my adult life, or most of it, able to align with either of them. So that's rather difficult.
Well, yeah, but if Jeremy Corbyn can be doing as well as he's doing, I think you could easily become a lot more successful. But going back to the
that's by the by, Jason. I mean, the real point, Jason, is this, right? Just over a year ago, Trump tweeted, many people think that Nigel Farage would be good as the next British ambassador in Washington, right? He was saying, this is somebody we can work with, someone we know, someone we trust. Now, I'll be frank with you, Jason. I'm not actually asking to become the ambassador. I'm not actually asking for an official position. I'm not asking for a title or a job. I'm not asking for any money. I'm not asking for anything. All I'm saying, Jason, is that I think I could perhaps be useful in getting relations between our country and America back to where it needs to be. And I tell you what I find amazing is 72 hours after he was elected, I went and met him in his apartment up at the top of the Trump Tower. And nobody from the UK government or the Foreign Office even rang me and asked for a debrief. And it's as if their dislike of me, Jason, their intense dislike of me, matters more in some ways than doing the right thing.
But what bothers me is that Theresa May and Donald Trump on the surface, because you've got to remember, people like myself, I've met Donald Trump, so I know the type of character of the person you're talking about. And it was a long time ago that I met the man. And it didn't surprise me one iota that he became the President of the United States of America, because he's got that determination and there's something about the man. But what bothers me is it's not the government isn't your problem. It's the British public that can't stand Donald Trump generally. It's when you talk to people on the street, they can't stand him. I was out with people last night, they don't like him, but Theresa May doesn't seem to have an issue with it.
But you know what, Jason? Whether we like Donald Trump or not doesn't seem to me to be the issue. The issue is that, is it in our national interest, firstly, to have a better relationship with him, secondly, to welcome him here on a visit, as much of the rest of the world wants to do? Surely that's what matters here, isn't it?
Absolutely, because you don't think things like the royal wedding and him getting an invite to that would do far more for the relationship than what you could possibly do in negotiating better trade deals.
I think, look, the royal wedding is, yes, you're quite right, a coming together of us and North America, but no, I think more needs to be done. Nigel, if the government asked for your assistance with Brexit, it's an admittance they have no idea what on earth they're doing, and Whitehall functionaries are Euro fanatics. And think us two short planks, helpfully, says Richard on this Sunday morning. Hi, Nigel, you should be negotiating with Jacob Rees-Mogg, says Pauline. Well, that's a comment on UK politics, not on any potential relationship with the USA. Nigel Farage would be useless in assisting the UK in trade talks with the US. How can we guarantee he will stay 100% committed and won't resign within 6 months? Nigel needs to realise that these talks are serious. Isn't that interesting? 25 years. 25 years of my life campaigning for this little outfit called UKIP, and someone suggests that I might be a quitter. You got the wrong end of the stick, mate. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 10:15.
LBC Through Your Workday with James O'Brien from 10, followed by Sheila Fogarty at 1 p.m.
You are claiming that killings aren't happening.
They were fighting each other.
Does any of that justify carpet bombing flats and hospitals?
No, I mean.
Yes or no, Ali?
It's not a carpet bomber.
Okay, I'm afraid you are an apologist for Bashar al-Assad, and I've had enough.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
Sometimes a good investment can bring great rewards, but not every opportunity is golden. Each year, thousands of people in the UK fall victim to highly sophisticated investment scams. If you're ever given a chance to invest, always start by checking the Financial Conduct Authority's ScamSmart website. The FCA can alert you to any warning signs and give advice to keep you protected. Be a ScamSmart investor. Visit lbc.co.uk to learn more and to win an exclusive technology bundle.
If more mornings feel a bit like this? Time to try something different at breakfast. Something that makes you feel more like this. Tasty Belvita breakfast biscuits are made with whole grain cereals and are perfect as part of a balanced breakfast, proven to slowly release carbs over 4 hours. Try Belvita for breakfast at home or on the go. Good mornings from Belvita.
Divorce. It affects every part of your life. You, your family, your home, your finances. And if you're a man facing divorce, perhaps even one you don't want, the situation becomes even more complicated. It's at times like these that you need a professional you can trust. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner men can count on.
What have you done to my toast? It's a mess.
It's a jam heart.
Oh, it's the wrong way up. I thought it was a jam bottom.
Invest time in stuff that really makes you happy. Whether it's making romantic gestures at breakfast or playing the guitar badly, you can, as Money Farm's here to look after your other life investments. We use innovative technology and investment wisdom to match you with a portfolio that can help your money grow. We offer general investments and ISAs, all with low fees. You have one life. Invest wisely. Moneyfarm.com. Your capital is at risk. Money Farm is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Enjoy some tasty Italian cuisine this week at Lidl. There's bruschetta for just $1.99. A selection of wood-baked pizzas, also $1.99. And a 2-pack of panna cotta, only 99p. Buonissimo! Hurry down to Lidl to see the full Italian range. Subject to availability and may vary selected stores while stocks last.
Why, hello. It's me, Dracula. Relax. I don't bite. Much. Unlike the cost of some broadband deals. That's why I switched to Sky Fibre Unlimited. Just £25 a month, including line rental, plus a $9.95 setup fee, exclusively for new and existing Sky TV customers. Frightfully good value. It's totally unlimited, super fast, and they'll never slow you down, even at peak times. Well, you don't want anything to stop the flow when you're screaming. Sorry, streaming, do you? Search Sky Fibre. Sky. Believe in better. Available to new fibre customers in Sky Fibre areas. New 18-month contract. Check speeds at sky.com. Further terms apply.
Do you spit blood when you brush? You could be on a journey to much worse.
Next stop, bad breath, receding gums, final destination, tooth loss.
If you spit blood, you may have gum disease. Ignore it and you could be on a journey to much worse. Switch to Corsadil Ultra Clean toothpaste. When used twice daily, it's 4 times more effective than a regular toothpaste at removing the buildup of bacteria, the main cause of bleeding gums. Help leave bleeding gums behind. Corsadil Ultra Clean helps stop and prevent bleeding gums.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
So I'm back from DC, where I was very pleased to catch up with President Trump once again and to meet some pretty senior people in the US administration. Betsy DeVos, Education, Wilbur Ross, Commerce. And it's interesting. I'm just saying, as I've said before, that I have got some good relationships with people in the US administration and indeed some friends there that I've known for some years. And maybe, just maybe, given the difficulties that there have been between Downing Street, the British government and the US administration, just maybe I might be able to be helpful in some way. Tony says to me by text, nobody has the contacts you have in America. Oh dear, I get on Twitter, is Farage really trying to pitch for a government job? No, I'm not. I don't want a job. I don't want a government job. I don't want to be paid. I don't want a title. I don't want a business card. I'm not going to become the ambassador in Washington, although I do wonder about the current ambassador in Washington. Let me tell you why. Let me give you an example, all right, of how this government's dislike of me is not acting in our national interest. So, in DC, on Thursday evening, there was an inaugural event, a rather surprising event, you might think in many ways. Yes, the Royal Commonwealth Society, patron the Queen, held its first ever event in the United States of America. The thing was hosted by Governor Phil Bryant of Mississippi, and he is in fact setting up a Royal Commonwealth Society office in Jackson, Mississippi. And in attendance were Lord Howe, former Conservative Cabinet Minister, he's the President of the Royal Commonwealth Society, and its Director, Mike Lake. So they flew over from London to be at this event. An event, as I say, that was, I think, significantly attended by Wilbur Ross, the US Commerce Secretary. And amazing, isn't it? You know, we had the governor of Mississippi there, the governor of Oklahoma there, you know, some very senior people, some business figures from Washington, D.C. there as well. So why was the Royal Commonwealth Society setting up in the USA? Well, you know, there is something out there called the English-speaking peoples of the world. And there are 52 countries now within the Commonwealth. They represent a population of about 2.3 billion. They have within them, of course, some of the biggest, fastest growing economies in the world. And this is an attempt to draw America into that orbit. Doesn't mean that America is going to join the Commonwealth necessarily at all. But what it does mean is there's a chance here for people to come together and to talk trade and to talk cultural links, you know, amongst a group of countries who speak English, have common law, and together have pretty remarkable shared history. So the event was held, and it was an overwhelming success, with one exception. Formal invitation was, of course, sent to the British ambassador in Washington, Sir Kim Darroch. He replied that he couldn't come because he would be out of town. Well, okay. But I'll tell you a funny thing, nobody else came from the embassy at all. They must all have been out of town. Perhaps we've closed down the British embassy in Washington. I don't know. No, of course, the truth is they boycotted the event because I had something to do with it. And I think there's a clear example there of us not putting the national interest first. And I can tell you that some of those senior American politicians were pretty disgusted that at this inaugural event that our Foreign Office, our embassy in Washington, effectively boycotted it. And I wonder, I didn't ask them, but I wonder what Lord Howe and Mike Lake made of it as well, having come all the way over, to represent the Royal Commonwealth Society. It is small-minded, it is petty, it is tribal politics at its very worst. And whether they dislike me intensely, and of course they absolutely hate me, because they never wanted to have a referendum in the first place, and they think I've really upset the apple cart. But whatever they think of me, there is something here that clearly was in our national interest, and they took no part of it. So that's where we are. That's the state of the British government's attitude towards me. And I would have thought perhaps they might be big enough and ugly enough to put that behind them and to get on with something more positive. That's what I think, but tell me what you think. What does Jason in Sutton think? Good morning, Jason.
Good morning to you, Nigel. Let's put it to the test. You say you'd like to be involved in our trade negotiations with the States. You were just talking about the Commonwealth. Do you know how much of our total exports America already takes from us?
About 20%.
Yeah, it's about 24%. Yeah, it's nearly a quarter of everything we sell already goes to the States.
I know. And isn't that remarkable, Jason, given the barriers that exist, and given particularly, Jason, that the US economy is off to the races in terms of growth and everything else, growth and investment and everything else. Look, Jason, you've just made the point in a way that everybody can exist on World Trade Organization rules, and they can. And
let me jump in, if I may.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in there? Over the last 20 years or so, there are dozens upon dozens upon dozens of EU-USA agreements in place. Everything from X-raying containers, security, research, development, making customs easier. We lose all of those benefits after we leave the EU, first of all.
Why?
Because they're EU-USA agreements. We would have to start them again, or we'd have to grandfather them across. Now, that's not been agreed. We don't have US permission for that. In fact, Wilbur Ross, actually what he said was Brexit is what he called a God-given opportunity to countries around the world to pick off the best bits of the UK economy. Nice guy. He's talking about the Commonwealth a lot. When we export vehicles...
I think you're somewhat misquoting Wilbur Ross there, Jason, aren't you? He talked about... He talked about a trade deal being an opportunity for American investors, as indeed it is an opportunity for UK. I mean, already... the Americans are the biggest investor in Britain, right? And we are the biggest overseas investor in America. Are there technical arrangements in place between the EU and the USA? Yes. Could we automatically pick up those rights the next day if we chose to? Yes. But what I'm arguing is, actually, we could make the relationship even better by removing more barriers. Now, are you saying, Jason, that you do not think that we should be aiming for an FTA, free trade agreement, with the USA?
Well, the USA is only one part of the world. As you say, 55% of our exports go all over the world. Our cars, for example, that we sell around the world, the average export price is £20,600.
Yeah, we sell...
Do you know what the average GDP per person is within the Commonwealth? $3,500. And if you take out Canada, you take out Australia, it's even less than that. So these people have got $3,500 a year.
All right, so Jason, do you think...
How many of our £20,000 cars do you think they're going to buy?
So do you think, Jason, that India is actually a country in decline?
No, of course it's not. It's a growing.
Right. So the point is, the number of rich people, Jason, in India, who are able to buy a £20,000 car, goes up every year by quite a huge number. And you're quite right about UK car exports. You know, we now sell more of our cars to the non-EU world than we do to the EU world. The question I'm asking you, and that is relevant to this debate, is do you think we should be aiming at a free trade agreement with America, not in exclusion to the rest of the world, but should we be aiming at it?
You just mentioned
Should
India.
we be aiming at a free trade agreement with America?
When we visited Prime Minister Modi in India, Theresa May went over.
Should we be I'm going to try one more time, Jason. Should we be aiming at a free trade agreement with the USA?
On the basis that it's a fair and equal and balanced trade agreement, yes, that's not what we'd get. And especially...
Well, hang on, Jason. If we didn't get it, we wouldn't sign up to it, would we?
Well, then what's the point? We've already got an excellent trading relationship.
All right. Okay. Then actually, we should leave the European Union tomorrow, do it on WTO rules, because you're perfectly happy with us operating with the USA on WTO rules, albeit with a few bits of technical adjustment to make trade simpler.
That's not how we trade with the US at the moment, and you know that very well.
Jason, we trade with America on WTO rules, and yes, of course, there are technical agreements with ports and everything else, but we trade on WTO rules. Jason, I thank you. Did my best. Matthew at Heathrow is the next caller. Matthew, good morning.
Morning, Nigel. Basically, I'm a Remainer, accepted we're going to be leaving, but basically I think now is a good opportunity, the timing's right, for you to get involved to try to get a free trade deal with the USA, but at the same time you've got to get the EU involved as well. We're not going to get that free trade deal unless the EU is part of it, and we can have a tailor-made customs arrangements, what Labour's talking about.
It's not impossible. It's not impossible that the European Union would look to have a free trade deal with the USA, although I do detect, to be honest with you, Matthew, that anti-American sentiment in Brussels is really, really high, and particularly with, a right-of-centre Trump regime. So I don't think, to be honest with you, that a close USA trade deal with the EU is on the cards anytime soon.
Well, but you could use that to try to get a good deal for the UK.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. No. I mean, it seems to me, Matthew, that the closer we are in talks and relationships with America, actually the more leverage we've got in our negotiations with the European Union, all of which leaves me bewildered, that 13 months into a Trump presidency, we don't appear to have made any advances at all on this score. I think we're missing a trick, Matthew.
Yeah, I know. And so why don't you now write a confidential letter to Theresa May highlighting the bits of information you found from Donald Trump and saying that you want to work together with them to try to get the right deal for the UK with the EU, but also to start talking about how this trade could work with the US and with the UK. So, I mean, have you actually written a letter to her? Obviously, it's got to be confidential. You can't put it on the website. I mean...
that wouldn't really work, would it? Matthew, I've been saying now, for well over a year, that if I could be of any use to help in any way at all, I would like to. Nobody has ever contacted me. They haven't even asked for a debrief, and I doubt they will after this trip. They even boycotted, the inaugural event of the Royal Commonwealth Society. Amazing. Thank you. Helena says Nigel Farage might have US contacts, but he's too old to learn to be diplomatic. A necessity to be a diplomat. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage. She's probably right. The Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show. It's time for the news. It's 10:30 with Andy Ivey.
Labour's shadow shadow Brexit secretary has confirmed the party wants a customs union with the EU after the UK leaves. Sir Keir Starmer insists it would be better to reach bold new trade agreements by working with the European Union. The boss of Team GB has revealed British athletes discussed boycotting today's Winter Olympics closing ceremony if Russia had been allowed to parade under its own flag. As it is, officials voted to keep a ban in place after two of the Russians competing as neutrals at the Games failed doping tests. The United Nations is demanding a 30-day humanitarian ceasefire in Syria starts immediately. The Security Council voted as Syrian government forces continued the week-long bombardment of eastern Ghouta. LBC weather, fine and dry with some sunshine for most areas, but cloudy in northeast England and eastern Scotland, highs of 5 degrees.
LBC travel starting on Vauxhall Bridge. Travelling eastbound, there are queues building up because a lane is closed there for crane operation work. Now in Enfield, Crown Road remains closed travelling westbound because of an accident at the junction with Great Cambridge Road. And in Annerley Road is closed in both directions as well, just near the train station because of an accident there, so it's looking slow on the approach of the closure. Now on the trains, there's no direct trains running between Gatwick Airport and London today. That's because of planned engineering works. However, a bus replacement service is running from Three Bridges. LBC Travel, I'm Emily Rose.
This is LBC.
At Boots Opticians, we're here to help you discover a stylish new look for less. We've got thousands of frames to choose from, so speak to us and together we'll find the perfect pair for you. In fact, with 2 pairs from £75, why stop at just one? Book in store or at boots.com. Boots, let's feel good. 2 for £75 on Boots £50 glasses as part of our half-price additional pairs offer. Both pairs must be bought for the same customer in the same transaction. Subject to availability. See in store.
Businesses do not like uncertainty. Yet uncertainty is inevitable with Brexit looming. Against this backdrop, only businesses that plan ahead and anticipate better will be able to weather the challenges and capitalise on opportunities. At Barnes Rofe, we'll help you get ready with detailed budgets and forecasts so that you're better equipped to deal with the uncertainties ahead. Get ready for a Brexit future. Call Barnes Rofe today. Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
So tell us your name and what you do.
My name's Olivia. I'm a hermit crab, passionate about dance, and I'm a proud mum to 49 darling hermit crabs.
Wow, you must need a lot of room for the kids, not the dancing.
Oh, we've got a 4-bedroom house with an extension and garden.
Oh, where did you find it?
Zoopla. Me and the hubby used the running costs tool to see if we could afford the rent, energy bills and council tax.
Clever.
We've even got an idea of the water bills. Great for us crabs. Oh, is this live? Can I show you some of my dance moves?
Yeah, it's radio. No one's going to see you.
Oh.
Find and move with Zoopla. Smarter about property.
I'm a great white shark and I'm come to eat your car.
Oh no, please don't eat me.
I'm come to get you.
Invest time in stuff that really makes you happy. Whether it's playing with the kids or spending time with your partner, you can, as Money Farm is here to look after your other life investments. We use innovative technology and investment wisdom to match you with a portfolio that can help your money grow. We offer general investments and ISAs, all with low fees. You have one life. Invest wisely. Moneyfarm.com. Your capital is at risk. Money Farm is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Oak Furnitureland's month-end price drop must end Sunday. With solid oak chest of drawers from $299, you won't want to miss out. Go online now to find a store near you.
Hi, I'm Paul Devin, CEO from WG for Business. A single-source solution for office supplies, furniture, print and business services. If you're a company director or partner with 50 staff or more, we could save you as much as 45% on your office supplies and services with our comprehensive and free corporate spend audit. Find out more at wgforbusiness.com or text the word audit to 87007. That's 87007.
Your future is here. The Global Academy, a forward-thinking state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Visit globalacademy.com to find out more.
SAP Concur does what might seem impossible for your business. It makes employees happy and finance happy. How? Well, employees love automated expense claims and invoices they can submit and approve from anywhere. And finance loves that they have full visibility into employee spend. Plus, SAP Concur integrates with leading finance systems, making the process better for everyone. SAP Concur. Expense, travel, invoice. Learn more at concur.co.uk.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Could I be of use to the British government in our upcoming trade talks with the USA or in any other way to be a bit of a broker in between the two administrations who at the moment appear to be moving further apart rather than closer. But before I get back to that and your very strong opinions of whether I'm any use at all, I have to talk about the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, who during the referendum campaign made it absolutely clear why he supported Remain. He goes on doing so. He said some pretty disobliging things about me, all of which led, about a week before the referendum, quite early one morning, we were going over Lambeth Bridge on the open-top double-decker that I was going around the country in, and I was just getting the microphone ready to sort of give, commuters a blast as they were coming out of Waterloo train station, and who was walking over the bridge but Archbishop Welby? And I have to say, I got the microphone and did give him both barrels. Gosh, I enjoyed that. But today, in the Mail on Sunday, big full-page piece from the Archbishop of Canterbury, Brexit and a broken Britain. And he says things like, the ugly disparity between the mansions that some can afford and the poor housing that others must inhabit shows how badly our society has corroded. Really, Archbishop? Do you think in Victorian London and Manchester that there weren't huge wealth disparities? Are you actually saying that the gap between living conditions at the top and the bottom have got worse since Brexit? I don't think so. It's a deeply misguided comment. He also says, austerity is crushing the weak, the sick and many others. Archbishop, we are still having to borrow 50 billion sterling every single year. This government is not cutting. We are still going on borrowing. And I have to say, the whole tone of the piece, where he talks about division, and yet through the words he uses, further increases division, this is a very negative article from the Archbishop yet again. And I just want to say this, Archbishop, stop talking the country down, because that's what you're doing. What a contrast this is to the people now running the administration in America, where they constantly talk up their country, their people and their prospects. You get back off the aeroplane into the UK to this dire negativity and a cold easterly wind and snow on the way. Now, back to this question of am I any use to anybody, particularly in brokering something, whether it's leading up to a trade deal or whatever else it may be with the Americans. Sorry to break the news, but you are the worst person to do with any talks about Brexit. Well, I wasn't talking about Brexit necessarily. You lied to us since the start, and look where we are. Oh, thanks for that. That's very helpful. Hilarious, Nigel. You've just added a new dimension to the phrase blowing your own trumpet. With Nigel's dual knowledge of both business and politics on both sides of the pond, it is only logical that he's leading the talks. I didn't necessarily, Chris, ask to lead the talks, but thank you for your comment. Nigel, you should be made Britain's roving world ambassador for trade and industry immediately. You, like Trump, have had a history in business, and unlike most MPs, you actually work for a living. Trouble is, our Oxbridge elite know what's best, think they know what's best for the 17 million uneducated, working-class idiots who voted Brexit. Thank you, Alan from Basildon. And Nicola says on Twitter, it would be common sense with your contacts, Nigel, so you can be sure they'll do the exact opposite. Nicola, I suspect you're right. And it would be... Would it not be logical? Let's have a little think about this. If I've been chatting to Wilbur Ross and Donald Trump and various people, would it not be logical for somebody in the UK government to say, look, quietly, off the record, don't tell anybody, because, by the way, Helena, I can be very diplomatic. I haven't told you a word of my conversation with Donald Trump, and nor will I, ever. But it would actually be quite logical from somebody from the UK government to say, look, just pop in, would you? Have a cup of coffee. Just tell us what the mood is over there. But I tell you what, it won't happen. Their dislike of me is much greater, it seems, than the need to do what I think would be the right thing. Chris is calling from Islington. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Nigel. Well, you and your best mate, you don't get on very well with him, because the 200% tariff he put on a British company, Bombardier,
yep,
you had no say in that. You could do nothing about that. the threat to General Motors if they moved a plant to Mexico, that he would put punitive taxes on them. He's a protectionist. Donald Trump is a protectionist. What did you do about Bombardier, Nigel?
Well, Chris, you've just made the point, Chris. Thank you. You've just illustrated beautifully why having a trade deal with the USA would be the right thing to do, because then that tariff would not have... It's come off now, but that tariff would not have been put on. So there is an argument here that says that would be a good thing. The broader point about him being a protectionist is it's very interesting, Chris. You know, his argument is that trade, free trade needs to be fair as well. And he does see the relationship with Mexico as one whereby America is being undercut and jobs are being exported. But, Chris, what I can tell you, and I've known this since November 16, since the week that they actually won the election, is they're very keen to do a free trade deal with the UK, because that shows everybody that far from being a protectionist, he's actually pro-free trade if it's with countries that he sees to be of equivalence. And perhaps, Chris, the real thing here, of course, is that now that Article 50, when it expires on March the 29th, is not the end of the process, because the government is going for a transition deal that will last goodness knows how long. Now, Chris, I think the reality that's dawning on the Trump administration, and they are somewhat bewildered by it, is that realistically there's going to be no trade deal signed until the end of Trump's first term as president.
You say that, Nick, but America's biggest trading partner is Canada. He wants to rewrite NAFTA with Canada as well. They're not a poor country. They're not like... look, the East Europeans that come here undercut British workers. That was a fact of life when they first came. That was a fact of life. You can't stop people moving. America needs the Mexicans. They can't survive. Their economy cannot survive without them. I've lived in America. You've lived in America. You know that. If he wasn't a protectionist, why would he want to rewrite the NAFTA agreement with Canada, their biggest trading partner? They're not undercutting them in wages.
Chris, I have a feeling, I could be wrong, but I have a feeling that the rewriting of NAFTA is now a very much lower priority than many other things for the Trump administration. And interestingly, you talk about Mexicans or whatever it may be, one of the things Trump said in his speech on Friday that was particularly interesting was the bit on immigration. He said we're going to need quite a lot of immigration into America because there are so many new factories, so many new businesses opening up in America, we haven't got enough people. And indeed, in bits of Washington, Chris, that I was in, there is now genuinely underemployment. Firms are struggling to find enough staff. But what he wanted to do was to change America's immigration to a point-style system. So, Chris, I think there's a change of priorities, but I do take your general point. You know, your general point that Trump to many appears to be a protectionist, that he doesn't like what he sees as unfair trade. I take that point, Chris, but I do think rewriting of NAFTA rules with Canada is now I think, from what I can see of it, a relatively low priority. Thank you. Robbie says, Nigel has worked tirelessly on behalf of the UK and should be at the negotiating table. Andy says, Nigel, you will get the call to negotiate a Britain-USA trade deal when Jacob Rees-Mogg becomes Prime Minister. Well, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Frank says, your speech in the US demonstrates enthusiasm and provides optimism. This optimism is desperately needed now in the UK. And Paul says, you are not in a position to help. You need to be in some sort of political party. Well, I am in a political party. It's called UKIP, which has relevance in the European Parliament, but none at the moment in the UK Parliament. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 10:45.
This is LBC.
Your future is here. The Global Academy, a forward-thinking state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Visit globalacademy.com to find out more.
Dacia, a car company unlike others. I like that. Europe's fastest-selling automotive brand. I like it. The Dacia Sandero, a What Car Award winner 6 straight years. Like that too. And it's yours from just $5,995. Very likeable. Read the glowing reviews at dacia.co.uk from our lovely customers. What's not to like? Seems more and more people are warming to the Dacia way. You'll like it too. At participating dealers only.
Oak Furnitureland's month-end price drop must end Sunday. With solid oak chest of drawers from $299, you won't want to miss out. Go online now to find a store near you.
Yopa, yeah. Woo!
Are you stuck in a sensual 90s R&B smooth groove? No? Fantastic. Then why not use Yopa to sell your home? You get your own dedicated local estate agent.
With a dedicated local agent.
That's right, and with Yopa's no sale, no fee plan, you don't have to pay a penny until your house is sold.
Don't pay that penny, no.
Thanks. Book a free home valuation at yopa.co.uk. Yopa, seriously, why not? I literally have just told you. Terms apply.
Don't break down now. I've got friends round tonight.
Oh, don't break down now. I've got to open the shop.
When winter does its worst, you need a boiler you can rely on. With British Gas, there's 10% off all new boilers and installation until the 31st of March. So you'll save at least £250 and get a 5-year warranty for added peace of mind. Search British Gas new boiler. Conditions apply.
You can take off, fly and land a Boeing 737 from just about any airport in the world.
100.
Without even leaving the city at Flight Experience London. An officially licensed Boeing product. It's the ultimate flight simulator used for real pilot training. Our amazing sale is now on with prices from just £99. Book online at london.flightexperience.com for the ultimate gift and take to the sky at Flight Experience London.
Check door keys, check wallet, check phone, check car keys, check the oven's off, check the radio's on, keeps the cat relaxed. Now check door keys, check wallet, check phone.
We all have our own checklist before we go anywhere. But here's one we can all do. If you're driving somewhere, check your journey before you set off. If you're driving near Baker Street, there could be delays while we improve safety and access there in partnership with Westminster Council. So please plan ahead and allow more time for your journey. For more information, search TfL Baker Street. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Dad always looked out for me, from checking for monsters under the bed to telling me that Brian was a loser when he finished with me. He even looked out for me when he passed away last year. Turns out he'd already organised everything, so I didn't have to.
At Co-op Funeral Care, we can help you spread the cost of your funeral plan. And if you pass away before completing all the instalments, we promise we won't collect the shortfall. That's the Co-op commitment, and it's unique. T's and C's apply. Visit coop.co.uk/co-op commitment.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
The British Embassy in Washington, D.C. boycott a Royal Commonwealth Society event attended by some of the USA's leading politicians. And all of this because I was there. And I'm asking the question, given this government's attitude towards me, wouldn't it actually be useful to do the opposite and maybe use me as a broker, given the contacts and connections I've got within the US administration? Charlotte from the Forest of Dean, I'm going to ask you that question. Could I be of any use at all here, Charlotte?
Yeah, I think you could. And I think what we're seeing here, Nigel, is it's just jealousy, isn't it? At the end of the day, this is just political jealousy, because they know that you're very popular, you're straight talking, and that's why you get on really well with Trump, because Trump doesn't take any of that career politician mealy-mouthed rubbish.
He certainly doesn't.
No, exactly.
Which some people, Charlotte, find brash and offensive, and others love it.
Well, no, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm pretty much a straight talker myself, and I find it refreshing to hear somebody actually sort of getting straight to the point instead of kind of waffling around everything. But at the end of the day, I think that if you compare and contrast the body language, I think you put a picture up earlier of you and the president,
yeah,
and you can contrast that with the body language between May and Trump at Davos.
Oh, I know.
It's absolutely stark. I mean, she looked like she'd sucked on a lemon.
I know. She looked
put a rocket under her.
She looked embarrassed to be there. She almost looked sort of shriveled up inside her chair, didn't she?
Yeah, I think he probably gave her a bit of straight talking that she didn't want to hear. And I think that well, no, I mean he
I'm not laughing at what you're saying. I'm laughing with it.
I know, but you know, I mean, I think he basically knows at the end of the day what these politicians are. Your Macrons, your Merkels, your your Theresa May's, your Justin Trudeau's, God forbid, and everything else. And he knows what they are, and they're just, mouthpieces for things that are ruining sort of countries and cultures and everything else. And they don't want people like you there. If SteemIt wasn't a wake-up call to people, your attempt to get in at SteemIt, then people are absolutely blind because, and he also knows that they hitched their wagons to the wrong horse, didn't they? Because they were all over Barry, they were all over...
Yeah. I mean, we'll find out more, Charlotte.
They shackled it to the wrong horse, and they absolutely hate you. And
They
hate
absolutely hate me, and we'll find out more about Thanet in court in May of this year, but I'll leave it at that. Charlotte, I thank you very much indeed. Nigel, we do need a trade deal with America, and you would probably be a great ambassador, given your relationship with Trump. But by the time Brexit goes through, Trump probably, and unfortunately, won't be president, and you won't be an asset to us. Interestingly, one of the things Trump said on the stage at CPAC that he's never said before was, he said, well, we've got 7 more years of this. That's the first time I've heard him say that he does intend to run again in 2020. Nigel, you are the right person to work for trade deals. I think you've been ignored because they won't admit they need you, says Claire. Well, I'm a firm Remainer, I get on Twitter, but I concede we should send Farage to the US. Forever, probably. Indeed, we should deport him and never allow him to return. Oh, this is great. This is democracy in action. This is free speech. This is people having their say. And James is a first-time caller from Nottingham. And James, you're on LBC, and you can have your say.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking the call. You're an absolute legend. So this is actually an honour to speak to you.
Say, James, that last tweet I read out didn't agree with that, but thank you.
No, I know. I feel that you, obviously internationally, you've got great relations with Donald. I just think that with the Tory government as it is at the moment, your skills will be wasted. You can't really put your ideas into place because you'll be representing theirs, and I don't think they kind of match what you want to do.
No, well, all I'm trying to do in this case, James, is just to be helpful, to be a broker, to be a middman. Yeah. That's all I'm suggesting is that it might actually be in the interest of all of us.
It would be brilliant, with building the relations and everything else. But I just think that, someone like Jacob in power, your ideas matter a lot better, and I think it would work a lot better if that happened.
So if Jacob was in power, it'd all be different, yeah?
Yeah.
Interesting. James, I thank you for your call. Do call again. I thank you. Let's ask Simon in Chiswick what he thinks. Simon, good morning.
Nigel. Look, if I look at your relationship, and I listen to you many times, not because I necessarily agree with you. I think you're a good guy, and I disagree with a lot of what you say. But your relationship with the US is, to me, is born out of ingratiating yourself. So you're just a yes man. Yes.
Really?
Yes,
do you know, Simon? Yeah. I've never been called. I mean, I've been called obstructive. I've been called abrasive. But I've never been called a yes man.
Now, and this is in particular to Donald Trump. Now, your relationship has been born out of... I've listened to you. You never, ever call him out. And even when you do call him out, the very next day there's a but. But that's not diplomacy, Nigel, right? If you recollect, and I'm no fan of Theresa May, Theresa May was the first person to visit Donald Trump. There was her walking out of the Oval Office, her arm around him. But you know what she dared to do? She dared to challenge him and put the UK's position on certain issues, and that strained the relationship. I don't believe in these tough negotiations that somebody whose relationship, and you're dancing around and doing the victory lap because you've got such high-level meetings, you've had such access, which is born out of...
Simon, hang on. It wasn't a victory lap. It was, there were two reasons for my visit. One was the invitation to go and speak at CPAC, which of course I accepted. But the other big reason for going was the launch of the Royal Commonwealth Society in the United States of America, a chance to bring America into that orbit, a big organisation, 52 countries, English speaking. I mean, that was a really positive thing that was happening there, and that was recognised by, as I say, Lord Howe going across from London, and by senior American politicians turning up. And the point I'm really making, Simon, whatever your view of me, is that for the British Embassy to boycott that, simply because I was there, is a sign of a government that is not really acting in the national interest.
But Nigel, if you just were in the US, now let me ask you this. Were you derogatory in any way, or did you undermine the Foreign Office or the UK government in your conversation?
No, no, of course not, because we invited them to attend this event, and I didn't say anything publicly about this when I was in America, although some of our American hosts were growling under their breath because they thought it was very, very disrespectful of the British Embassy to behave in this way. So no, I don't go abroad to talk down Britain, Simon. I was very careful about that. And if you look at what I said on the stage, I said, whilst I have my reservations about Brexit, I still hope and believe that it will go through. Simon, could I be of any use in your view?
Look, again, Nigel, if I'm sitting in the Foreign Office, you've run teams, you've managed process, and in something like this, you need a team that's rowing it all in the same direction. And if there is somebody in there that you feel that is acting for their own personal need over the need of their country, and I don't doubt that you love this country, I do, but I can't, by listening to your rhetoric, it leans towards you. It's the Nigel Farage show, right? And I say that in the nicest possible way.
Well, Simon, there we are. There we are. A very damning final comment from Simon in Chiswick. It's all about me, apparently. There you go. Barry is my last caller on this subject, and he lives in Leigh-on-Sea.
Hello there, Nigel.
Good morning.
Basically, I think because of your links with Business World, what you've done in the trading circles of London and the city, and your last 20 years with UKIP and Brexit and leading the Brexit, and quite frankly, you're the forerunner, you're the spearhead of this whole new world movement of politics. There is no one else who's done this but you. In America, the nationalism which is coming out all over Europe, Britain, America, everywhere. You are the spearhead of the whole lot. And as that side of things, in my mind, you really are and should be involved with a free trade agreement because you know both politics, you know both the business world. And
well, Barry, you're very kind, Barry. You've got confidence in me to do it. Some have. A lot of people who've called up this morning haven't had. Barry, I thank you. I do get on Twitter, would you be talking on trade agreements for the whole of the UK or just the southeast of England, Nigel? You do seem a little biased towards them. Really, Mark? Really? I don't get that. I think actually I spent most of the last 4 or 5 years as leader of UKIP. I spent most of it in the Midlands or the north of England or South Wales or places like that. Anyway, moving on to our next debate. Recent figures show that 51 new political parties were created last year in this country and that so far 13 new ones have been set up in 2018. Do we ever hear anything about them? No, not really. But given the aim of this show is to demonstrate that dialogue can and should remain open and civil between different political views, we've invited 2 new political movements into the studio. My question for you, is there room for a new political party in the UK? You can call me on 0345 6060 973. You can text to 84850. You can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and you can watch us live on Facebook and comment there too.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, the shadow Brexit secretary says Labour will support remaining in a customs union with the European Union. Sir Keir Starmer says it's the only way of realistically getting tariff-free access and solving the issue of no hard border in Northern Ireland. Speaking on LBC, Lucy Fisher, senior political correspondent at The Times, says the party is trying to satisfy Leave and Remain supporters.
Labour has been clear that they're leaving the customs union. I think that there is some wiggle room for the party to sort of argue that actually backing a customs union would be a different sort of entity that wouldn't come with some of the problems that have meant that Leave voters would potentially reject remaining in a customs union.
Syrian activists report the situation has been relatively calm since a UN vote for a ceasefire. More than 500 civilians are thought to have died in eastern Ghouta since last Sunday as regime forces target the rebel-held area. The head of the IOC, Thomas Bach, says Russia's Olympic ban is close to being lifted. It's despite two of their team failing drugs tests at the Winter Games in South Korea.
If no new doping cases are reported, then the sanction is lifted. They does not need any further decision.
The suspension had been imposed because of state-sponsored doping at Sochi 2014. The two recent offences are the reason for refusing to let the country's flag be carried at today's closing ceremony. Troops suffering mental health problems can get round-the-clock support from a new hotline launching today. It'll be run by the charity Combat Stress. The Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson has announced an extra £20 million to pay for it over the next decade. 3 men from South East London have been charged with a murder in Greenwich High Road. 30-year-old Joseph Bocci, originally from Albania, died in hospital on Friday after being found with head injuries last weekend. A cold blast of air nicknamed the Beast from the East is heading for Britain. The Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings of snow across the UK for 3 days from tomorrow. Forecaster Phil Garner from WeatherQuest has told LBC travel will be affected.
For Tuesday, Wednesday, we're not going to see temperatures during the day rising above freezing, and that means we're not going to get any thaw at all. So some very icy conditions, some persistent snow, and with the wind blowing that snow around in places, then that's bound to impact transport conditions in particular.
LBC weather for today, fine and dry with sunshine for most areas, but cloudy in northeast England and eastern Scotland, a high of 5 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Andy Ivy.
£1 could buy you a couple of minutes at the hairdresser's or a handful of cinema popcorn. Or £1 could buy you a Thunderball ticket for a chance to win £500,000. Bit of a no-brainer, really. Thunderball, only from the National Lottery. For just £1, you could win £500,000. Why not play this Tuesday? Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
LBC Travel in Annerley Road is closed in both directions near the train station because of an accident there, and it's looking slow on the approach of the closure. Now at Enfield, Crown Road remains closed westbound because of an accident there as well at the junction with Great Cambridge Road. And there are queues building up on Vauxhall Bridge travelling eastbound because one lane is closed for crane operation works. On the tubes, the District Line has no service running from South Kensington to Wimbledon, Richmond or Ealing Broadway today. There's also no service between Earls Court and Edgware Road. LBC Travel, I'm Emily Rose.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
There's one subject I really do know quite a lot about, and it's the setting up of brand new political parties, because I was involved in this way back in 1993 when UKIP first became established. But despite the difficulties of getting new parties off the ground in this country, there is no lack of enthusiasm out there for people to form them. And it's remarkable that last year 51 new political parties were set up and registered, and that this year in 2018 already there have been 13. Now, we don't hear much about them generally, and one of the things this show always wants to do is to try and make sure every range of opinion gets debated. And I'm interested at the moment in what's going on in the Remain camp. You remember a few weeks ago I talked to Alistair Campbell. He claimed that the Remain side weren't very active and weren't doing very much. I didn't quite believe him. Seems to me there's a lot of activity on the Remain side out there. Now, you know, I'm going to have this debate this morning, and I want you to engage yourselves in this, to ask yourselves the question, is there room for a new political party in the UK, and particularly one that has Remain, has a second referendum at the centre of its discourse? And you can engage in that by calling 0345 6060 973. You can text to 84850. You can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And, of course, you can watch us on Facebook and comment there too. Well, joining me this morning is Sandra Kaduri. She's the co-founder of Renew, a new political party, recently registered, and I think you've had your first press launch, is that right?
We have. Renew was set up last autumn after the elections by a group of independent candidates, and I joined them straight after. And our proposition is basically we want to rethink Brexit, renew Britain. And we believe that we want to deliver social change for the country and address inequality, drive prosperity, but from a position of strength within the European Union.
Right, so effectively, for you to be successful with the goals of your party, you have got to have a second referendum, haven't you?
Well, we think the tide is turning, actually, Nigel. We do see that many campaigning groups, as you say, are coordinating better now. And we're tapping into a feeling among voters that they didn't know everything that leaving the EU would be about. There's now more information on the table. There are the semblance of a deal coming together. We're not even still clear what that deal is. And now that this information is available, we think the voters deserve another chance to see whether or not they agree.
OK. No, I mean, I hear that. And yet, isn't your difficulty that a few weeks ago, sitting in that very chair, was Sir Vince Cable, leader of the Liberal Democrats, who kind of pretty much said exactly the same thing that you've just said. So we've got the Liberal Democrats who want an exit from Brexit, want a second referendum, and will make the same economic arguments broadly that you're making. We've got the Labour Party, going through a big change in their Brexit policy. Key speech tomorrow that Jeremy Corbyn is going to make, but it looks like the Labour Party are going to be committing to us being signed up to a customs union. We don't quite yet know where they are on the single market, but it would appear, despite Frank Field and Kate Hoey warning them that there are 4 million Brexit Labour voters, but it seems like Labour are going in that direction. So why do we need Renew, a new political party, if effectively that ground is covered already?
We are a brand new party, and I think that's important that we have a clean slate. We actually have to go back to the people. Millions of people feel politically homeless. They feel politicians are out of touch. The major political parties are riven by disagreement and infighting. Labour's on the fence about the European Union. The Conservative Party are botching negotiations terribly. The Liberal Democrats have been discredited and failed to make an impact at the polls. We need something new to create a new vision for the country. We're at a critical situation now. We need to go back to the people, find out what's wrong, what's working, what's not, and what gives them hope for the future. And we are on a wrong path right now, Nigel, and we really do feel people need a new alternative so they can make another decision about where we're heading.
So who's your leader?
We have 3 leaders at the moment.
3?
I'm one of them. Yes,
3?
It's a new
how on earth are you going to get the British public to understand a political party with 3 different leaders?
Actually, I think it's a really wonderful proposition. We've got 2 of our leaders are currently out and about, a Listen to Britain tour. We're carrying out surveys to ask people what's working, what's not, what gives them hope. They are visiting universities, schools, colleges. They're going campaigning in the street. They're mobilising our 800 candidate applications for Parliament. And thousands of supporters we've got coming in, and they're campaigning now and asking people, engaging people on the real problems of inequality and division in our country and how we should address it at the national level. If we leave the EU, we will not be able to address these problems properly. Our economic growth will be reduced, and we actually feel we need to stay in from a position of strength and really talk about the divisions and inequities in this country.
So if I'm a member of the public and I meet one of your co-leaders, by the way, you better give us their names because I don't know who they are.
Absolutely. James Torrance and James Clark.
Thank you. So I'm out there and I meet one of the Jameses on the street and I say, right, new party, Renew. OK, what's your policy on the National Health Service?
Well, it's very interesting on the National Health Service. Obviously, it's been crumbling. Obviously, there's so much demand and it's not been able to be dealt with. Obviously, we're going to have reduced public money available after we leave the European Union because economic growth will go down. We've also got chronic shortages of doctors and nurses in our health service at the moment because EU nationals are no longer coming to Britain. We saw the figures the other day, reduced immigration from the EU. And we actually have the health sector very much alarmed at the moment at the increasing cost of pharmaceuticals because sterling has gone down. So we actually...
Sterling was at 144 the other day against the dollar, higher than it had been the morning of the referendum.
Well, overall, it has led to sort of higher costs for the pharmaceutical industry. And we feel that the health sector will actually benefit from staying in. Also, the collaboration, the scientific research and the medical research that is part of the cooperation with the EU will be affected.
Would you not accept that one of the things that has put huge pressure on the National Health Service over the course of the last 10 to 20 years has been the fact that our population is rocketing, and that much of that has actually come from the European Union. That part of the health crisis problem that we have at the moment is because of the open door we've had to the European Union. And my guess is that the Jameses, as they're out there campaigning, are going to be met with that argument.
Well, obviously, I mean, immigration is an interesting and important issue, and it does need to be addressed properly. There are restrictions we could put in place that the EU has offered, where we could actually see that people who have not found a job within 3 months and are a burden on the health social services could be returned home. But overall, immigration has largely benefited this country, and we've seen a great diversity and skills being brought in. Businesses are currently alarmed by the reduction of numbers of people from the EU. It's enabled growth in our country and productivity. And we have to be careful about misinformation about immigration. We are a diverse society. And we are also immigrants ourselves into the European Union. Our young people are devastated. They will not be able to benefit from the opportunities of living and travelling and working in Europe.
Are you honestly suggesting that outside the European Union that young people won't go to university in Heidelberg or wherever it is?
Well, all that's up in the air, isn't it, Nigel? I mean, it will definitely not be as easy as it is while we are in the EU.
There's a very big world out there. And actually, in many ways, our young people, when they have their gap years, don't really choose Europe anymore. They choose the rest of a world that in many ways is getting much, much smaller. 17.4 million people voted. The biggest exercise in democracy ever taken place in this country. A remarkable result, given virtually the entire establishment, Goldman Sachs, through to, big businesses, through to political figures, senior figures, not just from Britain, but across the whole world. And despite this, in this great exercise of democracy, we voted to leave. Isn't your party an anti-democratic party if you want to overturn that?
We're actually strongly democratic, in fact, Nigel. We are actually looking for 650 candidates for Parliament, which is a huge exercise in representative democracy.
But the fact is, we had a referendum. Mm-hmm. We were told by the establishment that whichever way we voted to leave, that would be a binding result, and that Parliament and the government would hold faith with the people. And here you are, setting up a brand new party that wants to go completely against that.
Well, we do want to go back to the people now that there's more information on the table. Well, it would be a first vote on the final deal. When people voted on June 23rd, they did not know exactly what leaving the EU meant. And there wasn't a proposition from people.
They voted to leave.
And actually, it was only a narrow majority that voted in favour. And some polls show that there is now a majority in favour of remaining in the EU. And with that uncertainty, it surely is not responsible for us as a country to make such a monumental and existential decision unless we know that a serious majority of the country are on side with this. There is not enough consensus right now. Obviously, the problem of Ireland was never discussed during the referendum campaign. Issues of security and our global influence were not discussed. Scotland, our major cities...
No one disagrees. No one disagrees.
Nigel, let me just say of
course, this is complex. But, Sandra, the point I'm making is we did have a result. Let me ask you. I'm looking at your documentation, and you clearly had a lot of design work has gone into this, and launching political parties is not the cheapest thing to do. So what are your main sources of funding at the moment for this party?
We have multiple donors. We have a few private donors, and we have candidate donations and supporters, volunteers. All our board and our chairman and our party members have actually contributed as well. And we're crowdfunding. We're crowdfunding the Listen to Britain tour.
Have you directly or indirectly taken any money from George Soros?
No, we have not.
And would you take money from George Soros' organisations?
I would think about it. We haven't really talked about that properly at the moment. But obviously a new party does need some funding, and we will be interested in people who share our vision, who actually want to support the idea of a new grassroots movement that is actually going to offer a new vision for people and for the country, which desperately needs to come back together.
And tell me, what's been the hardest part so far?
We do have a lot of discussions in our office, our political philosophy and the way ahead. We absolutely agree on the basic premises, the need to address inequality, create more opportunity for everyone, not to leave behind people in our society, which I think the Brexit vote was about, this sort of warning sign that things aren't well. People haven't all benefited. But we also want to embrace the future, be modern and embrace the digital revolution, and actually work with our partners in the EU to address big critical problems that we're going to face. The biggest challenge, I think, is people like you, Nigel.
Well, no, not at all. That should make your life easy. I tell you what, I've got already today half a dozen callers who hate me. So, I mean, there's lots of fertile ground for you out there. But I tell you something, I promise you something. Setting up and establishing a new political party in this country is a very tough thing to do. Are you doing this on a full-time basis?
I am, and yes, several of us are now full-time, and we're obviously needing to grow the party. We need to build more machinery to obviously deal with the snowballing support we've got coming in. Thousands of ideas and policy ideas people are sending us, how to renew their communities. And this is really wonderful, and this is what's inspiring us.
Oh, there's no shortage of ideas out there. And finally, how have you found the press so far?
The press have been very good. I mean, we've had some tricky interviews, but the massive interest that we're getting is really good. We are the most credible new party around, out of the 51. And we found a lot of European media very excited about us, as well as the domestic media. So we think that's going to grow. One of our biggest challenges is information. I think the fact that we need to make sure quality, truthful information reaches people, that we're not interfered with. There isn't perhaps Russian trolling going on that is going to affect a future vote on this deal, and we need to make sure people understand what the propositions are, all the impacts of what leaving the EU means, the benefits and the negatives.
The biggest trouble you'll have is to establish a name and a face with the great British public, and I've got a recommendation for you. There's a chap out there, he's very well known, he's looking for a new political home. I think you sound like the perfect party for him. I give Tony Blair a ring, if I were you. Well,
we're not going for Tony Blair. No, not Tony Blair.
Well, there you are. But he's well known. That was Sandra Kaduri, the co-founder and one of the three leaders of the Renew political party, a new political party. And I want to know from you, is there space, is there room for a new political party in this country, especially one that basically wants to overturn the Brexit result? You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 11:17.
Completely overwhelmed.
My problem with it is the following. What is the first thing?
LBC at the weekend. Alex Salmond.
What occurred in the United States and Florida, it was a madman, a nutter, got a hold of guns, and the reason he is able to get hold of guns is that people like you fight against any restriction on gun ownership in the United States.
Leading Britain's conversation, Alex Salmond. Today from 3 on LBC.
We've been thinking about Janice and how she's got a lot on her plate. So when she leaves her phone behind after tasting 6 different wedding cakes, including one called Vanilla Vogue, she's more worried about squeezing into her dress than whether her mobile banking information is safe. That's because the NatWest Secure app comes with Face ID login to help you feel safe whenever you bank with us. Search NatWest Secure app. NatWest. We are what we do.
App eligibility criteria apply. Face ID login available on iPhone 10.
Dacia, a car company unlike others. I like that. Europe's fastest selling automotive brand. I like it. The Dacia Sandero, a What Car Award winner 6 straight years. Like that too. And it's yours from just $5,995. Very likeable. Read the glowing reviews at dacia.co.uk from our lovely customers. What's not to like? Seems more and more people are warming to the Dacia way. You'll like it too. At participating dealers only.
At Boots Opticians, we're here to help you discover a stylish new look for less. We've got thousands of frames to choose from, so speak to us and together we'll find the perfect pair for you. In fact, with 2 pairs from £75, why stop at just one? Book in store or at boots.com. Boots, let's feel good. 2 for £75 on Boots £50 glasses as part of our half-price additional pairs offer. Both pairs must be bought for the same customer in the same transaction, subject to availability. See in store.
Make your money go further. Here's something worth knowing. Using pay-as-you-go is actually cheaper than buying a day travel card in London. It's surprising, but true. Pay-as-you-go daily cabs are always cheaper than the equivalent day travel card in zones 1 to 9. So you never pay more than you need to. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
It's Super Weekend at Lidl with up to 50% off selected products. Get a bottle of Argentinian Torontes Mendoza, only $4.29. A 5-pack of sponge cloths, just 74p. And 4 rolls of strong kitchen towel, only 99p. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, NI vary, selected stores while stocks last.
Hello, I'm Alyssa and I was diagnosed with cancer.
You can help children like Alyssa beat cancer sooner. Pop your pre-loved clothes, accessories and homeware in a bag and donate it at TK Maxx. They could be worth up to £30 a bag when sold by Cancer Research UK. Give up clothes for good at TK Maxx.
And help children like me beat cancer sooner.
Steering wheel tappers, the 10 and 2s, Sunday drivers and dislikers of queues, beaded chairs, boombox boots, school runners and dashboard drummers, the singers, the seat adjusters, even the sat-nav addicts.
Take the next left. At Esso, we notice every detail. Whatever type of driver you are, remember to scan your Tesco Club card when you fill up at Esso. Esso. Energy lives here. For more information, visit esso.co.uk.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Never let it be said that the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show is not open to all points of view. In fact, I think actually, over the last few months, I've given Remainers a lot more time than I've given Leavers. So there we heard, and yet another new political party set up in this country, seemed to me to be really rather London-based, and frankly, with the Lib Dems campaigning for an exit for Brexit, I don't think, and particularly given their structure of three leaders that no one's ever heard of, I don't think they've got a cat's chance in hell of getting off the ground. Mind you, everyone said that to me about UKIP back in 1993. So you never, ever quite know. It's stupid to predict the future, but isn't it incredible that with the first past-the-post political system, with all that difficulty, there were still 51 new political parties set up in this country next year? Do we need a new political party, whether it's Renew or not? Or maybe, I mean, here's a thought. Here's a little thought for you. So, Frank Field this morning is writing in The Sun and saying that it would be a catastrophe for Labour if they head towards the customs union single market route, because there are millions of Labour voters who would effectively be betrayed, and Kate Hoey was backing that up. And then you've got Jacob Rees-Mogg's group of 63 MPs saying that Brexit's not being delivered properly, and then you've got UKIP, not a strong... I mean, maybe there needs to be a great big new political party that brings together everybody that wants a clean Brexit. There's a thought. 0345 6060 973. Daniel is calling from Finchley. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. I think first, by dint of the fact you just pointed out that 51 new political parties were formed last year,
yes,
indicates that there's more than a space. There's a desperate need for a new political party. So I think the main issue at the moment is both Labour and Conservative are tarnished brands, and they're so kind of entrenched in their narratives and going more to the left and more to the right. And actually, I think if a new party was formed that was authentic and honest about kind of why we're in the mess we're in, I think you'll find, at the right end of life.
So, Daniel, are you talking about perhaps a centre party?
Yeah, I think so, because I think the reason why Blair was so successful in his time was because he took the centre ground, and invariably, I think the majority of people, it's all about that authentic and fairness. So I think the majority of wealthy people would pay a bit more on their income tax. They'd be happy to do so as long as they knew it was being spent properly, and it would help kind of bridge the gap.
So someone needs to come in, Daniel. Someone needs to come in and do a Macron. Who is it? I mean, surely it's going to need a charismatic individual to do this, isn't it?
In which case it needs someone like you, but definitely not you, because you're too divisive.
Yeah, morning. Sunday morning, this is a gentle chat on LBC on a Sunday morning. Well, maybe I am, Daniel. But I mean, the point that I was just making to Sandra Kaguri with their three-leader system is that actually you need a political party, needs a leader, needs a personality, needs somebody that the public can recognise and understand who he or she is. And I'm just not sure, Daniel, with this new centre party idea, this sort of British Macron version that you're talking about. I mean, is it Tony Blair?
No, because again, he's too tarnished a brand. I think what you need to set the stall out and set the policy out, and then the actual, a leader will emerge. But first of all, you've got to set the policies.
And Daniel, where would this party stand on Brexit?
My own view is that I think a lot of the narratives around Brexit were wrong on both sides of the fence. So if you're absolutely fair and proper about it, I think the case needs to be presented again. And if you have a look at, I think, a lot of the decisions that were made, so the issues we've got within UK infrastructure, within our schools, within our hospitals, are because governments, whether the Conservative...
No, but Daniel, where does this party stand on Brexit? Is it for a clean Brexit? Is it for a second referendum? Because this is the issue of our times, isn't it?
It is. I think there should be, if I had to put my money on it, I'd say there should be a second referendum based on correct information.
OK, well, Daniel, I tell you what, that's why I don't think there's room for this centre party, because I think we've got the Liberal Democrats are going to say that. Labour may well be moving in that direction. I don't think, given that, there's enough space. I could be wrong. Otherwise, with Renew and all these new parties, if they're all campaigning for a second referendum, it begins to look like the Judean People's Front and the People's Front of Judea. Kathy is calling from Sidmouth. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning.
So, is there room for a new political party in this country?
No. I don't think there is, not at national level. Mm-hmm. I'm actually leader of the East Devon Alliance, and
The East Devon Alliance, is that a party?
Yes, it is, indeed.
Right.
But we focus on local governments, local democracy. There's a desperate need for improvements in local democracy.
Oh.
The accountability.
So, Kathy, just get this straight. So, unless you're part of a political party, it has to say independent, doesn't it, on the ballot paper?
It does indeed.
So, when you run for local council, it's East Devon Alliance, and that's clear, yeah?
Yes.
OK, interesting. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Yes, and what we stand for is transparency, accountability and democracy. And although it's fantastic that people get excited about forming new political parties, there's such a battle to be fought at local level where we're fighting the impact of government policies every time we're at a council meeting.
And how many councillors, Kathy, do you have across East Devon?
We got 10 councillors elected in 2015 as East Devon Alliance, and we now also have a county councillor as well.
Interesting. And do you get the feeling that people like the concept of a local political party?
Yes, very much so.
Interesting.
Because we're listening to what really matters to people locally, whether that's service cuts as a result of austerity, the massive changes going on privatising in the NHS and closing our community hospitals. These are the things that people can really see we need to be fighting about. Everything is being focused on Brexit, and I understand, of course, that's a massive issue, but that's very outward-looking, and people also need to consider what's happening locally as a result of what the government's doing now.
Isn't it, Kathy?
Another party just confuses things even more.
Isn't it a bit sad in a way? I mean, wouldn't it be better, perhaps, if we had no parties at local level, and everyone stood as independents and stood on the merit of who they were?
It would be, yes, and I think, local politics does cause a lot of issues in its own way when you're applying government policies to it. But there's also the concept, of course, that you can't get away from, is that government sets things like council budgets.
Yes.
How councils then act on that tends to be party political.
Yeah, and I get it. Yes, the theory of not having political parties is very attractive, but in reality, it doesn't actually work. Kathy, thank you. Fascinating, really interesting phone call, that. James is calling from Spitalfield. James, good morning.
Good morning. Nice to speak to you.
Nice to speak to you.
I listened to that lady from that new political party. Was it Revoke or
Renew?
Renew.
Recant. That's a great time. You've just given. I tell you what. By Thursday, there'll be a new political party registered with the Electoral Commission called Recant. I bet you. Sorry, James. Go on.
That's right. Well, I just think basically it's a good thing, and the reason is because now people that want to whinge and vote for Remain can split their votes between the Greens and the Lib Dems and Labour, and using our first past the post system, actually that harms their cause, and it's good for our cause. But the point I wanted to really make was, with first past the post, UKIP did really well in 2014 in the European elections. And the European elections are, I know they're by a different system, but...
Well, under PR, James, UKIP won. We won. We came first in the United Kingdom.
But it feels like it was about... The European elections was about a particular issue. And when it came to the general election in 2017, all the people in the north, most of them, who had voted leave in the referendum, were offered sort of pure socialism by the Labour Party that then lied to them about their intention to properly leave the EU, deceived them, and they all just switched back to voting Labour. And it just struck me that...
So where do they go now, James?
Well, what needs to happen, I think, is there needs to be a left-wing Leave party, and I think people in Sunderland, people in Hull, if they're offered something which
James, do you know what?
Public services,
do you know what?
Leave the EU.
A left-wing Leave party would get lots and lots of votes in those northern constituencies and not a single seat. And that is the problem with our first-past-the-post system. It makes it very difficult to get any new party established. But, James, you're right. There's a gap there. I thank you for your call. And that's the very gap that Frank Field is talking about in his article in The Sun on Sunday newspaper today. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 11:30 and time for the news with Andy Ivey.
The shadow Brexit secretary says Labour will support remaining in a customs union with the European Union. Meanwhile, Cabinet Minister Liam Fox is urging Tory Remainers to keep an open mind after they threatened to rebel over the issue. It's been revealed British athletes discussed boycotting the closing ceremony of the Winter Olympics if Russian competitors had been allowed to parade under their national flag. As it is, officials have kept a ban in place after 2 Russians, taking part as neutrals, failed drugs tests. Researchers have found toxic chemicals on firefighters' clothing and equipment are leading to higher rates of cancer in the profession. The study found kit wasn't being cleaned properly, leaving it contaminated. LBC weather for today: fine and dry with sunshine for most areas, but cloudy in northeast England and eastern Scotland, highs of 5 degrees.
LBC travel starting on the clockwise M25. It's looking slow on the speed sensors at junction 13 for Staines, where a vehicle caught fire earlier. In Crystal Palace, Thicket Road is closed travelling eastbound. Also, Annerley Road is closed in both directions just near the train station because of an accident, and it's looking slow on the approach of the closure there. Now in Enfield, Crown Road remains closed westbound. That's because of an accident at the junction with Great Cambridge Road. And on the tubes, the District Line has no service running from South Kensington to Wimbledon, Richmond or Ealing Broadway today. There's also no service between Earls Court and Edgware Road. LBC Travel, I'm Emily Rose.
This is LBC.
If mornings feel a bit like this, time to try something different at breakfast. Something that makes you feel more like this. Tasty Belvita breakfast biscuits are made with whole grain cereals and are perfect as part of a balanced breakfast, proven to slowly release carbs over 4 hours. Try Belvita for breakfast at home or on the go. Good mornings from Belvita.
Do you spit blood when you brush? You could be on a journey to much worse.
Next stop, bad breath, receding gums, final destination, tooth loss.
If you spit blood, you may have gum disease. Ignore it and you could be on a journey to much worse. Switch to Corsadil Ultra Clean toothpaste. When used twice daily, it's 4 times more effective than a regular toothpaste at removing the buildup of bacteria, the main cause of bleeding gums. Help leave bleeding gums behind. Corsadil Ultra Clean helps stop and prevent bleeding gums.
When you need more space.
Think creatively. What could you use a log cabin for? A studio? A home office? A den for the kids? Creative Living will design and build a log cabin to suit your needs, even taking care of electricity and climate control. See for yourself at our 3 large cabin display villages in Surrey. Find out where at creativelivingcabins.co.uk.
Your own log cabin, handcrafted, the creative living way.
Why, hello. It's me, Dracula. Relax. I don't bite. Much. Unlike the cost of some broadband deals. That's why I switched to Sky Fibre Unlimited. Just £25 a month, including line rental, plus a $9.95 setup fee, exclusively for new and existing Sky TV customers. Frightfully good value. It's totally unlimited, super fast, and they'll never slow you down, even at peak times. Well, you don't want anything to stop the flow when you're screaming. Sorry, streaming, do you? Search Sky Fibre. Sky. Believe in better. Available to new fibre customers in Sky Fibre areas. New 18-month contract. Check speeds at sky.com. Further terms apply.
Ready to add some tile style? At B&Q, you can do it for less with low prices across our tiling range. Like fossilised wood ceramic wall and floor tile for just £13 per square metre. So if you're ready to kickstart your tiling project, you can do it when you B&Q it. Tile £13.91 per pack.
Come and experience Lebanese dining at Marouche Restaurants. Try some of our amazing dishes, kafta dipped in a delicious hummus, or a colourful meze, complemented by a robust Lebanese red. With live music and traditional belly dancing, enjoy an atmosphere to match the food's rich and distinctive flavours. Go to Marouche.com to find out more. Marouche Restaurants, the finest Lebanese food across London.
Sangeeta used to dread taking meter readings. Tracking Gaz and Lecky meant going into the gloomy depths of the cupboard under the stairs. Last time she emerged with a sore nose, a bruised elbow, and a fuming temper. Fortunately, Sangeeta has just had a smart meter installed, which sends the readings directly to her energy supplier. And an in-home display shows exactly how much energy she's using, so no more trips to the cupboard. Contact your energy supplier today about getting your smart meter, at no extra cost.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
On a Sunday morning, there's a plethora of shows, television, radio shows, all doing current affairs and politics, and, yeah, they interview political figures, but in the end, normally, it finishes up as a whole series of journalists talking about journalists. Not so here on LBC, where the public get their chance to ring in, to text in, to tweet in, to comment on Facebook, and, you know, I get fed through the callers, and we screen them to the degree of making sure they're not absolutely mad or screaming down the phone, and then the callers come through to me. And you never quite know who it is that's calling in. Somebody whose name popped up a few times was someone called Femi, and he rang in from a variety of locations, wherever he was, and then what he was doing was he was then using his side of the conversation, and he was posting videos on YouTube. And here's a couple of examples of his calls into the Nigel Farage Show. I've got a call from Vienna. Femi in Vienna. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Farage.
Good evening. What is your main reason for wanting to vote Lib Dem?
Well, having studied EU law and therefore knowing what the single market is, I know the economic effect of being out of it.
Femi, hello.
Good afternoon.
Is Blair right? Should we do a different deal with the EU on immigration and then have a second referendum?
His point, one of the points he was making today was that we can address immigration better while still remaining in the EU. And one of the issues with immigration is the fact that the government simply hasn't been, living up to its promises. It says it will control immigration, but it hasn't.
Well, obviously these videos and these calls caught people's eye a little bit, and it's all really rather bounded on. And I sort of almost think maybe ringing into this show is making this guy, and as a result of it, he set up a new pressure group called Our Future, Our Choice, and he's gaining a bit of notoriety, and he's appearing across quite a few media platforms. Femi, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Farage.
So tell me, what other media shows have you appeared on in the last few weeks?
Sky News, BBC, I was on Any Questions 2 nights ago.
And Alistair Campbell is a big fan, big supporter. I've noticed that, and he too a regular on this show. So I've got your blurb here, and I'm kind of lifting the bonnet a bit on what's happening in the Remain movement out there. We've just spoken to a new political party, and you're a new pressure group, not a party. Our Future, Our Choice is a group of angry, determined young people who think Brexit is a disaster and it should be stopped. OK, it was perfectly clear what the aims of the organisation are. How do you... it's funny, I mean, the youth situation is very interesting, isn't it? That about 2/3 of young people voted to remain in the referendum. And yet, across much of the rest of Europe, and in particular in Italy, which has got a big election coming up in a few months' time, increasingly it's the young people in Europe that are turning against the European Union, and in particular against the currency. And yet the British are going in the opposite direction. What is it, in a couple of sentences, that young people, in your view, like about the European project?
For one, it gives us a lot more opportunities, and generally speaking, we want our children to have as many opportunities as possible. And I mean, I remember that I was with people who either hadn't studied at all at any sort of university or had just finished school, and we all went and did seasonal work in hotels in France, and also being both a UK and an EU citizen, that's the only identity we've ever known. And that's what's being stripped from us. I mean, you get to still be British, if we have Brexit, but you don't get the identity of being an EU citizen, which to many of us is quite important.
No, well, that's certainly true. We will not be EU citizens with Brexit, and that was clearly what we voted on. But what interests me is, I've always thought that youth movements were about having power, about the individual being able to, determine their own future. And what I find remarkable is, I understand why in Italy, for example, young people don't like the European project because the currency hasn't suited them very well. I get that. What I don't understand is if we're part of it, you as individuals would have more democratic rights and more power in a Brexit Britain than you could ever have in a European Union where the system of lawmaking is fundamentally undemocratic. Why would young people support a system where the European Commission has the sole right to make legislation?
Well, for one, as for the comparison between the UK and countries like, Poland, for example, there are a whole bunch of special exceptions that are made for the UK. We don't have the euro. We don't have asylum policy, which means we're not part of the asylum policy, which means that not one asylum seeker can enter this country without our say-so.
I understand that. I'm asking you about democracy. Parliamentary democracy.
Well, this is part of democracy, as in we've made these choices that other countries don't have to make because we have a significantly more powerful position. We don't have asylum policy. We're not in Schengen.
But what we do have is virtually every single piece of our commercial lives legislated somewhere else, something over which the British voter cannot do a single thing to change any of those laws. I mean, even if all 651 of our MPs were to vote against a piece of European legislation, we can't change it.
Let's just address the notion that the EU is undemocratic. The EU legislation, as you say, is proposed by the Commission, but it then gets sent to the Parliament, which you are a member of. You personally have the power to input amendments, to amend Commission proposals, which means you can take out whatever you like from a Commission proposal, you can put in whatever you want, i.e. draft law, and you are directly elected, which means you, as a directly elected member of the European Parliament, elected by the British people, have the power to completely change Commission proposals,
we have the power.
And yet you call the EU legislation undemocratic.
We have the power
that
of the
doesn't
House
really
of
make
Lords.
sense.
We have the power of the House of Lords. It is an amending chamber. But once something becomes EU law, there is nothing you as the voter or any democratic system can do to change that law. Nothing. We can't, with European law, change them at elections.
Well, at elections, you vote for the MEPs who will then have the power to change those laws.
They can't change the laws because the only way any repeal can come is through the Commission.
The Commission, who's appointed by heads of government.
Appointed
by heads of government who we elect.
Well, that's the point.
Heads of government who we elect.
Next question: EU law. You specialise in EU law. Again, youth movements always strike me as being about freedom. We live under common law in this country, as does Ireland. The rest of Europe lives, of course, under a very different legal code, where they haven't even got the basic protections of habeas corpus. Several parts of Europe where you can be left in prison for 6 months, 9 months, a year, without a charge even being brought. I would presume that you would rather we kept our common law system than move deeper into a European Union.
Absolutely, I love common law. I mean, I studied it.
So you love the EU. But you love the bits of it we're not part of.
Oh, like I said, we have a very special position within the EU framework. We have a whole bunch of exceptions which other countries don't benefit from.
So you're boasting almost this morning more about what we're opted out of than what we're opted into.
I'm making the point that we basically did Europe a la carte. We chose which parts we wanted to be part of because we have the sovereignty to do so. Now, I wanted to discuss the NHS and immigration.
Hang on. I'm still looking at the very big picture stuff here.
I feel the NHS is quite important to this country.
What is your organisation? What is Our Future, Our Choice? What are you going to do? Are you going to be an online-based campaign? Are you going to be a street campaign? What is your plan?
Both. 2 days ago we were in Hull speaking to some local people, including fishermen, and many of them, in fact, we spoke to several Leave voters who actually said, I voted Leave, I still think we should leave, however, the government is making a mess of this deal, and
there we'll find some very broad agreement.
Yes, and many Leave voters are of the opinion that if this government comes back with a deal that is going to hurt us, we, the people, should be able to say, actually, stuff that, we don't want this.
So will you, as you did at the last election, be an organisation... I mean, you voted Lib Dem, I believe, last time
Actually, I changed my mind. Strategically, I voted Labour, even though I'm in two minds about that now.
Okay, but Jeremy Corbyn himself, of course, has always been a Leaver, hasn't he?
He's always had Eurosceptic opinions, but I really wanted to touch on the NHS.
No. I mean, listen. I mean, I'm sure you've got a very full group of things you want to campaign on, but I'll ask you one quick question about the NHS, which I asked the previous interviewee. Would you accept that a population that has risen beyond anything we've ever seen in this country before has put massive pressure on the National Health Service?
I'd say that EU migrants make up 5% of the UK's population, and yet they make up 10% of our doctors. So rather than EU immigration being something that threatens the country, it is literally keeping it alive. And instead of pointing out the fact that the arrival of EU migrants is helping our NHS, what did you say? And I quote, before the referendum, you said, "There is nothing we can do to stop unlimited numbers of EU people coming to this country and enjoying the same rights and privileges as all the rest of us."
Yeah.
And then, when I pointed out to you in a conversation that we had that under EU law, you can't come here without a job unless you have enough resources to not become a burden.
But that's never been enforced, Femi, and if it was enforced...
So who do we blame? Do we blame the EU?
If we started deporting people...
Do we blame the EU?
If we started deporting people after 3 months because they haven't got jobs, you and your lot would all be screaming blue murder and saying we'd become some fascist dictatorship.
So you're saying that it'd be bad to deport people?
Do you accept...
The UK has the power under EU law...
Do you accept
to put limits on immigration?
A population rising by 500,000 every year has put huge pressure on the National Health Service.
Given that EU migrants contribute more doctors than the UK population...
So surely a country that's looking after its own strategic future, firstly it would plan how many doctors it needs, and of course we can't do that because we've not been able to predict what migratory flows have been. And secondly, shouldn't we actually be training enough nurses and doctors ourselves in this country to do these jobs?
Well, there's nothing currently stopping us from doing it, and yet still EU migrants make up more doctors than we do. Now,
I have to say, I'm very worried about. Listen, I'm afraid we're out of time, Femi. I can see you've got a massive passion
that there are restrictions that can be placed, which goes directly against what you said during the referendum.
You cannot. It is completely.
So will you admit that you lied about EU law? Will you admit that you lied about EU law?
It's unenforceable. We have a different.
Belgium enforces it. When I went to Belgium,
a different system in the rest of Europe. You have to contribute to get benefits. We do not have that link.
When I went to Belgium,
that is why
they made me register.
I know. That is why our National Health Service is very, very different to the health service across the rest of Europe. The NHS was a contentious issue, but it's not as contentious. It's not as contentious as a whole mushrooming of organisations.
In both Belgium and Austria, I was required to register, explain my job prospects, provide a copy of my employment contract,
and try and talk through interviews, you'll find that very few people invite you back. What would you, in a sentence, ask the Prime Minister to do? She's going to a summit on the 22nd of March. What would you like her to say when she comes back?
I'd like her to say that if we can't get a deal that's going to make lives better for the British people, if we can't get a deal if we get a deal that is going to make life worse, that will either leave us less sovereign or leave us significantly cut off economically from our closest and most important economic neighbour, then I will give you a vote. I will protect you from a bad deal by allowing the people to decide whether or not this is right for them.
OK, well, there's a lot of calls for a second referendum. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 11:48.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
The Archbishop of Canterbury has warned that there's a danger of a schism in society, that austerity is crushing the weak and Brexit is dividing the country. Do we all need to take a step back and reimagine the future of the UK?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
The digital revolution has transformed the way we do business. But it's also increased the risk of sensitive information getting into the wrong hands. It's vital for businesses to stay digitally vigilant today. That's why BT has a team of 2,500 cybersecurity experts, constantly watching, predicting and responding to threats, to protect themselves and their customers. For more information and your chance to win an iPhone 8 Plus, go to lbc.co.uk.
When most people think of 3D, they think of movies, games, or TV. At Darwood & Tanner, we think of it as a process of determining the shape and volume of your jawline in three-dimensional space, allowing us to create the perfect dental implant solution for you. To be amazed at the transformational effect of Darwood & Tanner dental implants, visit darwoodandtanner.co.uk. Darwood & Tanner, obsessive about dental implant technology.
Shut the door on routine. Start something new. Power your adventure and unmap your life with the Jeep Renegade from £189 a month. With 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating, touchscreen, Bluetooth, sat-nav and legendary Jeep capability. Visit jeep.co.uk to begin your journey today. Personal contract hire. Jeep Renegade 1.4 longitude manual. Initial rental of £1,134. 48-month term, 8,000 miles per annum until March 31st, 2018. Subject to status. Leases.
Check door keys, check wallet, check phone, check car keys, check the oven's off, check the radio's on. Keeps the cat relaxed. Now check door keys, check wallet, check phone.
We all have our own checklist before we go anywhere, but here's one we can all do. If you're driving somewhere, check your journey before you set off. If you're driving near Baker Street, there could be delays while we improve safety and access there in partnership with Westminster Council. So please plan ahead and allow more time for your journey. For more information, search TfL Baker Street. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Oops! A spag bowl. But if you're one of millions that experience joint or muscle pain, even cooking can be a tall order, especially at the end of a long day. Turn to Voltarol for targeted pain relief. We're experts in body pain, so whether it's osteoarthritis, joint pain, or you overdid it in the gym or in the kitchen, we can help get you moving again. But it won't do the dishes. Voltarol, the UK's #1 selling pain relief gel.
Based on sales data, Voltarol Emigel P contains diclofenac diethyl ammonium. Always read the label.
There are so many reasons why I got into teaching.
One of the best things is the light bulb moment.
When you see a pupil suddenly understand something, that's really, really special.
Every child is so full of potential, and the thing that makes me proudest to be a teacher is seeing them realise what they are capable of. I don't think any other job can give you the same satisfaction.
That's why I chose to teach.
You could get £26,000 tax-free to train. Search Applied to Teach. Selected subjects only, subject to eligibility.
If you own a Swiss watch and it's time to sell it, speak to watches.co.uk. The whole process runs like clockwork. Rolex, Patek Philippe, Omega and more. It only takes a couple of ticks and we pay immediately. Or if you just fancy a change, we could take yours in part exchange. From time on your hands to money in your pocket, it couldn't be easier with watches.co.uk. The pre-owned Swiss watch specialist.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
There's a host of new political parties and new political organisations springing up, and many of them are backing the Remain cause. And I'm going to keep on asking, when new political parties emerge and campaign groups emerge, how many of them are being funded by George Soros? It is a legitimate and fair question. But is there room? Is there room for a new party in British politics? A new party to reverse Brexit. It ain't happened yet, so how will we know what life's like as an independent nation again, says Helena. Danny is a first-time caller from Camberwell. Good morning.
Thanks for having me on.
Good morning, Danny. Is there room for a new party, Danny?
I'm rather split on this issue because I do believe we are living in very interesting times, on parallel times in many, in every case.
Yeah.
Because we have many large swaths of disadvantaged people and people who feel disenfranchised from the political system around the country and practically in every Western European democracy today. And we've seen, President Trump talk with this very same rhetoric about the forgotten men and women of the country. And so I think it is a time of the political outsider. It's a time when someone who can come from externally and can actually shake up the political system a little bit. It's a time when people, I feel, they want that, they're drawn to that, and so that's a void which has to be filled in the United Kingdom. I think UKIP was filling that role, but obviously with successive leadership elections, I feel like they've slightly drifted away from that, but I feel like there is a vacuum to be filled there, And I think it must be filled by a Brexit-supporting party rather than a party looking for...
Now, Danny, the government would argue that they are the Brexit-supporting party.
Oh, well, I'd say with numerous inconsistencies on the issues of the single market and customs union, despite their manifesto and their kind of power struggle within the cabinet, is distracting from the key issue on Brexit that we voted for. More fundamentally, despite Theresa May in the election saying that she would be willing to walk away and that no deal would be better than a bad deal, we're not really seeing that in her mannerisms. It seems like she would take anything that's on the table.
So you think even with Theresa May, giving the speeches she gives, saying that she will deliver Brexit, you still think there's room for a Brexit party?
I think there's definitely room for a Brexit party.
Okay.
Not just that, because we're not too sure, obviously, how the negotiations will play out. But nevertheless, there is still a vacuum to be filled on the right of British politics as well. What that caller referred to earlier as a left-wing Brexit-supporting party, that's certainly an idea that would work, because that's not really a vacuum that's being filled, and certainly many people within the northern heartlands of the UK would be supportive of that. But definitely on a right, low-tax party, with one that supports low regulations, I think we have a vacuum for that too, because the Conservative Party has not necessarily filled that role.
Danny, if we had PR, both of those parties would establish a good headcount in Parliament. Under our current system, they're not going to get anywhere. Danny, I thank you. Martin is calling from Croydon. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning, Nigel.
So, is there room for a new party?
Well, I started my own political party in 2015. I stood in Croydon Central, which was a marginal seat, and I got 57 votes.
57.
A lot of people thought I would get nowhere near that, but I put together my own manifesto, and a great learning experience. I'm so glad I did it. I've disbanded the party now, but I was hoping to get a philanthropist interested in my thinking. Funding is a big problem, isn't it? But I only need one philanthropist to be on side with me, and I can make it fly from there.
Well, Martin, you say that. But and yes, money is an issue with political parties, but even if you had money, if you didn't have, a clear branding that the public understood, and frankly, an identifiable leader, it still wouldn't go anywhere.
Well, I've got what it takes to be a leader. I market myself as the Nigel Farage of the centre-left.
How does that work?
Well, nobody.
You can't go out there and say, "Vote for me. I'm like Nigel Farage," can you?
Well, I can. I don't suffer fools gladly. You don't suffer fools gladly. I don't suffer fools gladly. And with you from the sort of centre right and me from the centre left, I think we should run the whole planet, to be honest.
Well, there we are. Well, Martin, thank you very much for your call. Well, I think what Martin proves is there is a wonderful, boundless, false optimism in people who set up their own political parties or run as independent candidates. It doesn't matter what history has shown them, that it's pretty much impossible in this country with the first past the post system ever to break through onto the national debate, let alone win representation at any level. And yet, still people like Martin, filled with enthusiasm, go out there, and he said he was quite pleased he got 57 votes in Croydon Central. He wasn't sure he was actually going to get that many. Well, mind you, they all said the same to me about UKIP. It could never succeed, so who's to say? Tell you what, if we had proportional representation, it would change very, very quickly indeed. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night at 7. Coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon, it's Alex Salmon, but up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
You've got the new Macron sitting right in front of you here, Nigel.
Well, you never know, you never know.
OK, thank you. Coming up, a new map and images created by leading UK architects has revealed how a network of proposed car-free zones across London could transform the city. Should London's main shopping streets, including Oxford Street, be fully pedestrianised? Before that, Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson has announced that British troops suffering battlefield stress will be able to turn to a dedicated round-the-clock helpline for the first time from today. Are we finally beginning to take the mental health of our returning troops seriously? But first, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has warned that there's a danger of a schism in society and that austerity is crushing the weak and Brexit is dividing the country. Do we all need to take a step back and reimagine the future of our country?
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at midday, Labour has confirmed what appears to be a switch in its position on Brexit, saying it now backs remaining in a customs union with the European Union. And Shadow Brexit Secretary Sir Keir Starmer says it's now crunch time for Theresa May. Tory rebels are warning that they have cross-party support for an amendment to the government's trade bill that would mandate the UK to form a customs union with Brussels. The Prime Minister will give a keynote Brexit speech at the end of the week. Commons leader Andrea Leadsom says the recent Chequers meeting of senior